Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Ruby Rogues podcast. This week on our panel we have Mark Locklear.
Hello from Asheville.
We also have Jeremy Smith.
Hey, everybody.
Have we had both of you on before? I know we've had one of you on before, but
I have been on before. I think it was maybe last year sometime. Earlier, maybe a year ago. Yeah.
And this is appearance number 3 for me. I did when I did Learning Rails 5 for O'Reilly. I think we talked about that then,
nice.
And then I think I did the developer story, my developer story. So
cool.
Yeah.
Is there an award I get? Is there an award I get or something I can put on my wall for number 3 or?
I don't know.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, make that happen.
I should hand out awards.
Yeah,
I'm working on setting up suggestion box right now, actually, for people who want to suggest guests or topics. But yeah,
oh nice.
We'll give you an award of I've been on almost as many times as DHH.
yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, you guys are organizing a conference, and Valentino thought it was a good idea to have you on to talk about it, and I thought, oh yeah, I've got a ton of questions, and then he bailed on me, so I get asked my questions.
That's perfect.
Yeah, organizing a conference is something that I've wanted to do for a while. And to be perfectly honest, I've done probably a couple dozen online conferences. And so anyway, I'd love to just dive in and, we can talk about what some of the differences are, but also just, where the idea came from, things like that. I think Valentino sent me a copy of a tweet or something. Do you guys want to talk about where the idea came from, and then we can kind of just work from there?
Sure. Yeah, I can start with that, Mark. So let's see. So our conference is called Blue Ridge Ruby. It's in Asheville, North Carolina. It'll be June 8th and 9th. That's a Thursday, Friday. And it's a 2-day single track conference. There'll be 10 speaking slots. Asheville is a fantastic mountain town in Western North Carolina. Great beer, great food, lots of music, lots of outdoor activities. And we're planning, in addition to the conference, to have some optional weekend stuff that people can stick around and do as well. And a big part of it is certainly learning and getting, just making professional connections in the conference, but also just making friends and having time with people in a cool town. And Asheville is one of my favorite places. I actually live an hour south. Mark lives just outside of Asheville. It's fantastic. A lot of people come to Asheville for vacations, or it's a huge wedding destination, and it's just a great town. So I feel like it's a perfect place to have a small regional conference.
Yeah, and my role was just really mine is one to support Jeremy. We follow one another on Twitter, and he sent out a tweet about a year ago or so now, and just asked what people thought about putting on a conference in Asheville. And I'm sort of like you, Chuck. I thought about it before, but I'm like, there's just no way I want to go there. And I'm not tied in, although that's probably an excuse more than the truth. I feel like I'm not as tied into the community. I've got an 8-year-old daughter, and so a lot of conference stuff stopped for me around that time, in addition to COVID. So really those things are excuses more than anything. But certainly when I saw Jeremy's tweet, I immediately sent a tweet back and said, hey, I'm here to help in any way you can, or any way I can. And so after a few months, he contacted me again. We did a Zoom chat. He came into town. We talked more. And so that's sort of what brought us to where we're at now.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I have to say that when I first got into programming and Ruby, there was a local conference called Mountain West Ruby Conference.
Okay,
It was put on by Mike Moore. He just lives 20 minutes, half hour from here. And it seemed like there were a lot of the regional conferences, and I don't know if it was COVID that changed it. It feels like it was kind of slipping off. There were fewer and fewer of them. Yeah,
a little bit. I actually have been looking at rubyconferences.org. If you go back and look at past conferences, they start in 2014. that was the highest number at 49. If you just look at the total listings they had 49
Right.
listings of conferences, and that might be even just like one day events and stuff. But as a rough measure, there's 49 in 2014, and it's kind of tapered off since then, but not like even right. So right before COVID, it was still, I think, in the 40s.
Oh, really?
Low. Yeah, I think it might have been like 40. But then, 2019, 2020, they've been really down, and then even 2022. And so I'm hoping that things pick back up, but it definitely, like, it just took a beating from that, So I think, and I've even wondered if it's kind of like, how in all these, I don't know about in your area, but we had like all these cool restaurants and things close during COVID. They just never came back. The ones that are like, you're hoping they make it, they just start and you hope they make it. And then, they get T-boned by it, and then they just can't survive. And
Right.
I almost feel like there are so many things that got lost in that. And there needs to be this energy to kind of come back in and bring that back. And there's a loss. Obviously, restaurants is like a very minor loss, right? So in big picture, and conferences also, like nothing is devastating as what a pandemic is. But in terms of like, there are all these other losses too, and conferences is one of them. And I think coming back maybe a year ago, I've never been to a lot of conferences really, but it was a year ago that I really decided I wanted to, like I needed to, and I wanted to, and it was worth it to me to reinvest that way. So I ended up going to like 4 different conferences for Ruby and Rails in 2022.
Right.
And I had such a great time. By the end of the year, I was like, I got to do that. Like I've got to do something like this. I want this for other people. And there might be some conferences that just don't come back, but I'm hoping other ones will take their place, and I'm hoping more and more people will kind of step up to make them happen, because I think it's really important for our community.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Jeremy. There is a vacuum somewhat now, right? I think and I mean that's across the board, not just conferences, but whether it's restaurants, other places in the economy too. So I'm hoping we're going to fill some of that void by having Blue Ridge Ruby, and the fact that we've Jeremy and I have talked about this some, that in the Southeast, of course, Ruby on Rails has been to Atlanta. They'll be there this spring, and then they were there a few years ago. But there's not a regular sort of Ruby or Rails focused conference in the Southeast anywhere. So I thought it was an opportunity to sort of fill that void too.
There used to be like Ancient City Ruby, but that hasn't been around for a while. And like the Raleigh area, the Research Triangle area is like really big, but I don't think they've ever had a Ruby conference. So like if you think about big cities in our area, Atlanta, Raleigh, Durham,
Charlotte,
Jacksonville, they're just, you're not seeing any conferences like that. And I'm sure there are Ruby devs here. I know there are. So it's good to have something down here.
Yeah, I have to say that I feel some of that. I've been actually doing a bunch of coaching. You can go apply. You can apply for coaching, and then the way it works is I do like a half-hour session with you just to see if I can help you out, and then we talk about options. But I've talked to a whole bunch of people, and they're trying to figure out how to move their career ahead. How do I become a senior developer? How do I get a raise? How do I find a better job? How do I stay current on what's going on, things like that. And a lot of it is some of it's you have to stay current on some of the ideas that are out there, which conferences are really great for. And then the other one is you have to go out and meet people, right?
Yeah.
Because the way that you find the good jobs is you find the good developers who love their job, and you go work with them.
Yeah.
I mean, in a nutshell, right? And so, and most of those people are the people showing up to the conferences.
Right.
And I've been telling people, find a conference you can go to, but I've also been telling people to go find meetups. And that's the other thing. That's the other end that has really just, it's been rough for people.
Yeah. Big time. Yeah.
So I feel that too. So yeah, I love the idea. I think you guys need to put one out here in the Mountain West as well, because I miss them. I've been to a ton of conferences. A lot of the bigger conferences have actually, so like Microsoft and stuff, they've paid me to, well, not paid me, but they paid my way and my airfare and hotel to come out to conferences and interview people at the conferences. So
That's cool.
I've been to a bunch, but the regional ones are just, they're way more fun because you meet somebody and you run into them in the hall later, and it's not 75 zillion people. So yeah,
that really hit me this past year. So I had never really understood that. But this past year I went to Jason Sweat's Sin City Ruby. He did like a maybe a one-time conference in Las Vegas.
Yep.
Pretty
I found
small.
out about that after he did it, because it's a 4-hour drive, 5-hour drive.
Dang,
from here.
yeah, it was great. I saw that and I was like, oh, I'm doing this. And I went, and it was maybe I don't know, 45, 50 people, something like that. I don't remember final numbers, but it was small. I met most everyone there and had great conversations with so many people, and a lot of people that I wanted to meet. People I'd been following on Twitter for years that I'd always wanted to have a conversation with. I got a chance to have that conversation. Then I go to RailsConf and it's over 1,000 people, and everyone's in masks, and you can't tell if is that the Shopify group over there in a circle? Like, can I go talk to them? Can I even break in? Where do you go? Right. It's so much easier in that small conference to like find people to talk to and stuff like that. And if I had started by going to a really big conference, I probably would have stopped. It's just like really overwhelming. But because I made so many friends at the first conference, you get to the big conference and then you've got a bunch of people to say hi to again. Like, hey, I just, we were just talking like a month or two ago. Great to see you again, and then you've got another group to join. And for me, like as an introvert, that was like so helpful. It was just so helpful. So for people that are either first time conference goers, introverts, if you don't have a group to go with, going to a smaller regional conference is probably a better bet. Like it's not going to have the glamour of a really big conference, but you will more likely have good conversations, make friends that, will, continue, there's friendships that can continue on, beyond just acquaintance. And so I feel like that's the angle. That's my tip for new conference goers. And it was also the thing that I just wanted to be able to provide to other people. Like I want that same experience for other people.
Chuck, right. I'm curious to hear. I love that idea, and I hadn't thought about that. Now it's making me think I'd love to do something like that at Blue Ridge Ruby. This idea of either interviewing or interview prep. What does that look like at is it generally just new devs, or do you find that even more experienced folks like the idea of having career counseling / I don't know, what does that look like?
Right. Well, the interviews that I've done are the podcast interviews.
Okay. Oh, those, okay.
But yeah, I mean, the slight misunderstanding, I actually like that idea because a lot of people are, especially newer people, they just don't know what to expect or how to prep or anything like that. And so, if you had kind of a new programmers track or a new programmers, hey, we're gonna throw on these extra sessions or an evening session at a restaurant or something
I'm thinking about even a space.
Say, hey,
I'm thinking about a space we set off to the side, Jeremy, where we either, we could do it during lunchtime or in between sessions. So that's something we can explore and see. Because like I say, I'm curious, certainly for new devs, but I wouldn't be surprised if there'd be more experienced folks that, because oftentimes maybe you're not afraid to ask technical programming type stuff, but people are more reluctant often to ask about career counseling sort of things.
I love that idea for sure. But yeah, for the podcast interviews, they usually just assign us a room. The Microsoft ones, they had Richard Campbell from .NET Rocks podcast actually doing the organizing as to which experts we would have the opportunity to talk to and stuff like that. And he was pretty good about knowing which topics we wanted to cover. So
that's cool.
But yeah, so let's say that I decide I want to revive a Mountain West Ruby conference. Now, Mike owns the rights to the name. He's not going to let me use it. I already asked him. Right. So I'm going to name it something else. But let's say I come up with the best Salt Lake City Ruby conference in the world, or whatever I'm going to call it. I mean, what do you do now, right?
Well,
Yeah,
I'll jump in real quick, and then I'll let Jeremy take over. I'll say, find that there's the first follower video that's out there. So I would say if you're the one that wants to put on the conference, find the first follower, and that's been my role here, is that I feel like I'm Jeremy's first follower here. It was his idea, but he has been really great. He's been really gracious about bringing me in, letting me handle certain things, but not like too much. So I would say find a partner in crime would be the first step.
Yeah, I definitely would concur with that. Like, Mark, it would be really hard. Like, putting on a conference is really stressful. It's just really like, it's one of the more stressful things I've done. Maybe I just don't do a lot of stressful things, but this is up there with house renovation for me. And that was over 10 years ago. And I'm, like, that's what I'm relating this stress to. And I kind of knew it was going to be stressful. Like, and I knew it would be, but like, having somebody else to say, hey, it's going to be all right. We're going to figure this out. You're going to be okay. Yeah. That, whatever the decision is, we're going to work through it. That is so helpful. I need that for sure. And I can imagine a lot of other people would too. Maybe if you already are a pretty good decision maker and, don't question your, own decisions, or like, you've got a thick skin and you can kind of handle a lot of either criticism or not worry about what people are going to think. Maybe that's a little bit easier, but for me, that's definitely like weighing on me, like in a big way. Like I'm a consultant. I work with, small, companies building their Rails apps. I'm used to focusing on one client and how what they care about. And all I have to do is make this one person happy. With a conference, you've got to make like hundreds of people happy, and you don't know where the unhappiness is going to come from. Like, what are you going to do wrong that's going to really, like either upset people or hurt people's feelings, or really like put people out in different ways. And it could be just their perception, but it could also be your bad decisions, like, or just things that just happen randomly that you're going to have to deal with. So all of that is just like, all that to say, like, it's stressful. It's really great to have a partner, and I'm really glad for Mark. So yeah, that's definitely step one.
That, and then I'll follow up. Jeremy can talk more about this too. Is the getting sponsors has been the next thing for us. I mean, Jeremy's really stepped up here, and I mean, essentially, he's sort of putting this thing out of pocket, or at least he's made the commitment to do it. Now, the hope is that he won't have to. But that's been the next step for us. Is and I'll just say one more thing on that, then Jeremy, you can talk more about it. But along with that, we've got a pretty strong developer community here in Asheville. Again, as Jeremy said, it's sort of a vacation destination, but there's a lot of remote devs here. There's not a lot of big tech, although there are a lot of tech folks here. We've got a local Slack team, and there are probably a few hundred folks in there. Now, not all those folks are active, but anyway, we've recruited a handful of local folks that are inside that Slack team and sort of brought them in to help out as volunteers and things like that. So, big part of what we're spending our time doing is reaching out to sponsors, whether it's over Twitter, other email, devs who are Rails and Ruby folks who work for companies that have other Rails folks, having those folks contact reps in their company to see if they can get sponsorship. So that's been a big part of our focus.
Yeah, and related to that, like, a big part of that is if you're just starting a new conference, you are trying to build credibility with people. If they don't know who you are, and I've been pretty relatively unknown, you're asking companies, well, you're asking anybody, like the attendees, the sponsors, the speakers, everyone's having to trust you. And so, at least for me, that was like, okay, how do we represent ourselves, and how do we kind of build trust with sponsors who are going to, hopefully help us with the bills, and attendees who are going to have to put down money to come. There's so many things like that. So yeah, I think a big part of it is like doing a good job with your branding. And like, that was one of the first things I was focused on. I do a lot of design work, so I built the site, but I focused heavily on that to make sure there was a high level of quality that people could feel, and because to kind of make up for the fact that no one knows who I am. So if I, like if conferences are all about details, then showing people right off the bat that we're detail oriented really matters, I think. So that's another piece of it. But then also, like, because this is new, we're basically selling ourselves. Trust Jeremy and Mark to do this well and not screw it up. And we're really going to try hard. But if you don't know us and we're just like a brand on the internet, it's like, what is that? So that's a big part of it. That's why it's important to even talk to you right now about this, because that's kind of what it is. Like, please trust us. We want to put on a great thing, for our community. It's hard. We're working at it. But it will require trust. There's, it's not like RailsConf where you don't need to, you may not even know who the organizers are, but
Right.
just, it's been running for years. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they're going to do a great job. And, I'm being somewhat facetious, obviously. Organizers are super important and they do have a huge impact, but there's already a brand reputation that's built for long running conferences that we just don't have. So if you're starting something, you're selling yourself in a lot of ways to people. You have to market yourself.
Yeah, and I would say quick too is, it's up to us, Jeremy and I to make it great. But I would tell others who plan to come, you're going to help make it great too, right? You're going to come and you'll be attending the sessions, but between sessions, after sessions, and if you stay and do other things during the weekend, we're working on trying to plan events that folks can go to. But the participants are going to help make things special too.
Absolutely. It reminds me of that story, Stone Soup. I think about that story all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It's like you kind of create the container, but everyone else really, they're the ones that make it happen, right? We're creating a space and a container and hopefully doing a good job of taking care of all the details so that when people show up, all the magic can happen. All the really good stuff can happen.
Yeah, I mean,
and
to
that
me, it
requires people.
Yeah, to me, Jeremy, too, it's like hopefully we're creating the environment so the magic can happen, right? We're not actually going to create the magic, but we're going to facilitate that. And hopefully we create an environment where other folks can, help make the magic happen.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a bunch of other random advice if you're interested.
Well, one thing that I've been wondering about, because running the online conferences effectively, right? You just set up your streaming talks, you put it out there. I've also done a summit where I pre-recorded all of the talks. Basically, they weren't talks; they were interviews. So I interviewed a bunch of experts. It was on podcasting, not on programming. But so you put that out there, and kind of done, right? And so then you pay any speakers who wanted to get paid. And then you're off to the races. And that's another thing that I'll ask you about in a minute. But, finding a venue, a lot of times the venues want you to like book a certain number of hotel rooms. If you're doing a hotel, want catering, blah, blah, blah. Like how do you arrange something like that? Mountain West Ruby Conference, just for context, they did it in the Salt Lake City Library. And so they avoided a whole bunch of that stuff, but it was a rather small venue. It was the trade-off. And so they filled it all the way to the top every time because they would sell every seat in that auditorium, and they probably could have filled it 2 or 3 times over the room.
Well, I'll jump in and give Jeremy a hard time real quick. Jeremy wanted a super nice venue. There was going to be no public library and anything like that, and it is, though. It's really a cool venue. It's generally used as there's a lot of good independent music that's in Asheville, so the venue is often used as a sort of music venue. But go ahead, Jeremy, and tell them more about that.
Yeah, I had my heart set on this theater. So there's this Masonic temple. If you go to blueridgeruby.com, you'll see a picture of the inside. It's got this fantastic, really beautiful theater in this historic building, and so kind of had my heart set on that. I feel like that spaces like that do matter and do make a really big difference. I don't know. Maybe it would have been better to go with like a cheaper, easier one, but I felt like that would be a rad one to do. So venue is definitely important. Around venue, I would recommend finding a venue that has everything that you need, like chairs and AV. If you can, if the venue supplies all that, that makes a lot of things easier. Also, what was I going to say?
Well, food
Yeah, I mean,
was,
that's one of the
I'll
first
jump in
things that you were going to do.
Yeah,
Oh
I'll
yeah,
jump in
food.
real
Yeah,
quick. Yeah,
thanks.
food was another issue. I mean, the nice thing about this location, it's right downtown. There are a ton of eating spots. So there's that. And also, just to Jeremy's point about having a venue where a lot of the logistics are taken care of. Like I'm a part-time instructor at the local community college here, and we sort of considered that, but a lot of that would have been left up to us to try and organize the spaces and the chairs. This venue where the Masonic temple that we're going to be in, that's basically what they do. That they've got a full time person there who does the scheduling, sets all that up, and then they've got staff who does all those things for you. So the nice thing about choosing a venue like that is that we can focus on speakers and the tech stuff and all those things, and know that the logistics as far as the space we're going to be in, chairs, the AV stuff, sound, all that stuff is going to be taken care of for us.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We also decided not to do lunch. Oh, I guess that was the food thing. That was like one of the big things. When I've looked at other conferences, that's one of the highest costs they have, and also one of the things that people either complain about or that doesn't come through the way they want it to. So it's like highest risk, highest cost.
And I think case, a cheap or a free location that we would have looked at would have definitely been outside of town somewhere. So that would have meant we would have had to take care of that. We would have had to take care of that. And also, I'll mention the travel part too. That when you're nice thing about being downtown Asheville, close to hotels and lodging. So ideally, folks who are coming in from out of town, they can fly in, they can take a shuttle or an Uber from the airport into town, and then they can spend really all of their time there. They can walk from their hotel to the venue, so that takes care of that piece of things too.
Yeah, we had that with Mountain Rest Ruby Conference as well. They didn't provide any meals, but it was downtown Salt Lake at the library, and so there was a ton of stuff for people to go eat at and stuff. And then one of the other benefits is that Matt is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, whose headquarters is in Salt Lake.
That's right.
And so there were a couple of years where Mike essentially planned the conference right around the church's general conference. And so Matt's was more than willing to come out because they helped him with the travel, and then he could come out for the religious services and then go
that's funny.
back.
Yeah,
and so
that's smart.
Right. And so there are definitely reasons, but for the food, just having it downtown, that worked out great. And so people would just go do their thing and then come back.
Yeah. That takes care of a huge aspect, all the different food requirements that people have, and just the potential for complaints or just issues around food. Just being able to eliminate a lot of that. We'll still have like drinks and snacks, but it won't be the same way, it won't be the same scale, and it won't be as stressful, hopefully, around that part. Another thing that I'd recommend, or at least it was a surprise to me, when we first launched the site, we didn't have a CFP open. I thought we were going to have to kind of just go around and beg speakers to come. And we are asking a few speakers that we want to personally invite, but almost immediately people were saying, "Where's the CFP? Do you have a CFP open?" And I was like, "Oh, I guess we have to have a CFP." And then sure enough, we're getting a lot of great CFP talk proposals. It's been fantastic. Right. Been really happy about it. We've got another. Let's see, we close in a week, and but we've gotten plenty of really great proposals. So I'm very happy about that, and that's one thing I would have done right from the get go instead of waiting. I didn't know that would be one of the easier parts. It's not.
What did you use?
Google Forms. I mean,
I've done that.
Yeah.
I was trying to put on an online Ruby conference and an online JavaScript conference, and the issue I ran into, I tried to use the Ruby Central CFP app.
Yeah.
And it just started acting up on Heroku for no reason. So,
Oh, dang.
Like the simple thing, I've done Google Forms in the past, works fine,
Yeah.
right? Because it puts it into a spreadsheet. So then you just add your, let everybody vote on it, who's going to vote on it, and then you pick your talks.
Yeah.
Or if you're the one picking all the talks, then you just tell people they're accepted.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a mix. There's a certain aspect, I don't know, speaker selection is such a tricky thing. There's so many aspects that you want to get right with it.
Right.
I want our volunteers to be a part of the process. But at the end of the day, we'll end up being, I think Mark and I's, our decision about who those, final slots go to. And we're trying to hit a wide range of interests, of diversity and backgrounds, even of experience with speaking. Like, it matters to get some speakers that everyone knows, because people love, oh, so-and-so speaking, I'll go. Right. But it's also important to have speakers that are new to, newer to speaking. We want to elevate voices and new voices and so trying to get that right, especially if it's a single track, that actually feels really challenging. I thought we were going to be, begging to get 10 slots filled. Now I'm thinking, oh man, how do we balance this really well and get this variety in the ways that are going to be most beneficial to attendees, to the speakers themselves, and to the Ruby community. So it's a good problem, but it's still a hard problem. And it's challenging. That's one of the definitely a challenging part of it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I've run into as well is some of the speakers that we reached out to for the conference, before the CFP kind of fell apart on us, was some of them wanted to be paid. And so trying to figure that out, and okay, where's this money going to come from? Is it going to come out of ticket sales? Are we going to have sponsors? Am I just going to have to eat it? And so that was another thing. Do you run into that a lot, or?
Yeah, so I asked around a bunch about that. And so to be clear, we've got 10 speaking slots, but no, oh my gosh, I just blanked on it.
Keynotes?
No keynotes. Thank you. I just blanked on the word. We're not going to do any keynotes. Keynotes are okay. So at least from what I've learned in the Ruby community,
keynotes are usually the ones you pay for.
Yeah. And so they range from, the people I've talked to, they range from 2,000 up to 5,000 is what I've heard. I've heard numbers in that range. And right now, I've got a baseline budget that I have to hit to be viable, and I just could not commit to that kind of money. So I already knew I wanted to do some kind of honorarium for speakers.
Right.
And so I looked at what RubyConf is doing, and they do I went to RubyConf Mini, and they did a $500 honorarium, and that seemed, I talked to some other people, and I said, yeah, that's sort of typical. So I'm committing to that. I want to make that. That doesn't even cover. I know it doesn't cover travel and accommodations for a speaker, so that sucks, and I hate that. But I want to at least make some effort there. I need some baseline of commitment to say, we really appreciate you. You're doing great. Thank you so much. But I couldn't go to the next level of also, doing keynotes at that level of expectation. And I don't want to ask someone to come do something like that for free. That's just what the expectation is. So I felt like the best thing to do this time around, at least, was to kind of just leave it out. Maybe if we, maybe if it's different next time, maybe we could add that. But that was a way to cut some of our expenses, at least.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. It's interesting not doing the keynotes on the remote conferences. I mean, we kind of did it, but I would usually just kick it off with my best known speakers and round the day out with another well-known speaker.
Yeah.
Without necessarily calling it a keynote. And typically their talks didn't follow, because the keynotes also tend to follow a certain format and cadence. And since their talks were more just hey, this is a technical talk about a thing I'm doing, that worked out great.
I think we'll be looking for some talks that might be bigger picture, more Ruby community related, or things like that could start and end to kind of frame, hopefully, some framing talks that kind of set the stage for what we want and kind of close things out in a good way. But
Yep.
even if we have a lack of that, there's an opportunity for Mark and I to hopefully, it's a small conference. Hopefully we get a chance to kind of set the stage as well for what we hope the 2 days to be, and what we hope this space will be for people. So
yeah,
I think that can,
something
kind of fill that.
aspirational is sort of why I like the idea of having an aspirational talk, as either a starting or a bookend to a conference. So we'll see. We've in fact we've already got some. We're looking at some of the talks, the submissions that we've got, some that might work for that. So I think even in the absence of a keynote, we'll still be able to sort of have that, have those starting and ending talks that'll sort of fit within that context.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've kind of talked a bit about like venue and honorariums and things like that. So, at the end of the day, I'm a little curious, what does your budget look like? Or how would I figure out what my budget should look like? Maybe is a better question, right?
I'm
going to pull up my budget because I can't remember what my numbers are.
He has $100,000 that he's going to commit to.
Oh man, I wish I had rich friends like Mark does.
Not now, man. Yeah.
No, definitely not. Okay, so right now my so I have a baseline budget that doesn't cover things like video production, swag, banners and decorations, things like that. But my baseline is, and this also doesn't, so I need to figure out, I'm still working on event insurance. That's a thing I need to tackle here shortly. I don't know what that's going to even look like. I'm kind of scared to find out, but venue, lanyards, drink, snacks, speaker honorarium, speaker dinner, and logo and branding work, I'm looking at around 16, 17,000 for that.
And we should check,
and then my stretch goals.
Well, I was going to say, we should check with the venue about the insurance thing, Jeremy. I hadn't thought about that, but lots of times, and you may have
did recommend
already.
Yes, they recommended. They had a place to get insurance.
Okay, so
however, so one of the tricks is we're also doing these Saturday activities, and we're saying, hey, come hike with us, to a waterfall, or
that
come
could be a
tour
liability.
the Biltmore House with us. So I've got to figure those parts out. I don't know what to do about that yet. I wish that we didn't have to worry about that, but I've got to figure that out and make sure that we're
sign
a
waiver
on that. Yeah, I think that helps. That definitely helps.
No, yeah,
I don't know that it'll be enough, but yeah. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, and then like video production is going to be $7,000 to $8,000. We keep adding other things. So I really would like to do video production, but as of yet, we don't have the ticket sales or the sponsors to cover that. So I need to hit our baseline. And if we get the sponsors that we need or have the ticket sales that we need, we'll be able to do that. That would be my next thing. So it's more like almost like stretch goals. We've got like this base level, and as long as we can do X above that, I'll do the next level. But I'm committing to the base level even at a potential loss, and hopefully not. I don't think it'll be that way. We're still like 3 months out, and I feel like we've had good feedback from people online, from speakers, from attendees, and that sort of thing. So, but that part is still is scary.
and like that, having the budget in place and having those stretch goals has been like, I've used that sort of as a marketing tool for some of the sponsors that I'm talking with, some of the larger companies that support Ruby on Rails. I've used, for instance, the video part. I've made that specific plea that, hey, we don't have video recording in place at the time, but if you'll be a Ruby sponsor for us, then we can negotiate, either have your logo on some of the video, or so I've sort of used that as a pitch to try and get higher level sponsorship.
I've also talked to people that have run conferences that have had, so for example, you said swag, right? Is one of the things that you didn't have in there. And I've had people say, I let the sponsor the swag, or I let the sponsor sponsor the lanyards or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm okay with some of that, but there's also certain things that I feel a little bit maybe anal about. Like I want it to be done in a certain way, or like, so I want to make sure, like if we do shirts, I have a certain way I want to do shirts.
Because I see,
Right.
I'd rather not.
I had a wild,
delegate that to
wacky
somebody
idea.
else.
Yeah, see, I had a wild, wacky idea about shirts, Chuck, and Jeremy was like, "No," he shut that down right quick. So,
I don't. Yeah. I don't mean to be that way, but there are some things that I want to,
giving you
like,
a hard
I feel
time.
a little bit anal about. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, those are kind of the things that I'm just like, I don't know how to do. But the other thing is I'm also aware that there are a lot of other aspects to this that I don't know about. So yeah. So what are some of your other tips, tricks, random thoughts that, somebody might be going, hey, I want to organize this conference and they're gonna run into this wall if you don't warn them off.
Yeah. If it's your first time, don't commit yourself to a block rate for a hotel. If you want a hotel block rate, you're going to be committing yourself probably to 80% capacity. So if people don't come and fill that, you will be paying the rest of that bill. So if you're on a budget, just don't do it. Just tell people, here are the good hotels to go to, give them a couple options and let them pick. It's not, people would rather have like one hotel that everybody's going to be at, and they would hopefully like a discount, but it's just, that's really difficult to pull off if you're on a shoestring budget. I think it really helps to use Twitter for promotion. That has been really big. And if you're not using Twitter already, then you probably want to be using it well ahead of starting a conference so that you have a network to tap into. And I don't have a huge network, but it's better than it was even a year ago. And I think that's really helped. Also, if you're going to conferences, a lot of the people that I met and made friends with at conferences have been very supportive and very, just been very encouraging and helpful in promoting this conference. So go to conferences, make lots of friends, and tell your friends what you're planning to do. And I've just found that so many people are supportive of that. That has been one of the biggest encouraging aspects of it, is just how many people are just like backing you up on that kind of stuff and wanting to see things like that go well. And that's meant a lot. And so do that ahead of time so that you're ready and have those people, to lean on and to ask for help from the marketing. Yeah. The marketing and promotion is a huge thing. And again, it goes back to people are having to trust you. And so don't hide behind a brand when it's just you. Be the person that's making those connections to speakers and to sponsors and everybody else. And I don't know if I said this already, but
I was going to say, just doing what we're doing now. We did the Ruby on Rails podcast a couple of weeks ago, but getting the word out, that's sort of free promotional stuff that you can do. That it's time, but it doesn't cost anything to do.
Yeah, right. No, we really appreciate that. That's a huge thing. Like being able to talk about what we're doing in the community. Twitter's a great place, but obviously, like being able to come on Ruby Rogues is like a fantastic way to be able to tell other people about what we're doing. So yeah, absolutely.
And then I'd say having a team too. We got Jeremy reached out to folks on Twitter. There was a bunch of response there, and then again our local group too. We've got a handful of folks. So we've got a little weekly. We got a standing weekly meeting in place on Fridays, where even if there's not something specific we're going to talk about, we'll just take 30 minutes and check in there, get up to date on any sponsors that folks might be contacting. If there's any issues, that again, it's a good spot for if Jeremy's trying to make some heavy decisions about things. It's just a good sounding board for him to be able to say, hey, I was contacted by this person about that. What do you guys think about it? So it feels more like a team rather than just maybe, either Jeremy by himself or even just myself and Jeremy, having 3, 4, 5 folks there feels more like we've got a team in place.
Yep.
I would also say, like, I don't know how other conference organizers do this, but you got to budget regular time every week to work on this. I've been tracking my time so far in February, and I'm coming in at around 8 to 10 hours a week on average for the conference. And maybe that will taper down. I don't know if it will, but that's where I'm at right now. And it was probably higher when I was working on building the site and getting those things set up. So it takes a good amount of time. Thankfully, I do like fractional retainer contracts. One of the retainers I had just wound down. I wasn't planning to fill all my capacity, and I was planning to budget like 10 hours a week from here till June to work on this. And thankfully I can do that. I don't know how you do it if you have a full-time job and like a family and stuff like that. Thankfully I have this during my work day, budgeted through June, and can kind of do that. But yeah, make sure that you've got enough time to commit to it, or figure out a way to, split that with other people and that sort of thing. But there's so many little decisions. Like there's so many like just surprising things that keep coming, like you think it's like, okay, we got this one thing set, but then there's just like a million decisions behind that. Like you set the venue, but then there's a million decisions about which tables to use for this, the sponsor area. And, like going through all the details around their Wi-Fi and their AV setup, and like just so many things, right? So it's just surprising, and having enough margin in there so that when those things hit you've got capacity for it, I think is really important. And for me, like I am a big picture person, and to do details, which I do for my, I build web apps. So like you got to be detail oriented in that sense, but I'm big picture, and to do details well, I have to keep going back over the details over and over and over again. And that's the way I've got to do it, which is why it's really helpful to have a weekly stand-up Mark was talking about. We basically sit down for 30 minutes and say, what's happened this week? What are we working on? And that's being able to go through those details over and over again helps me make sure I'm not losing anything. Cause I've already been surprised by a couple of things. I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. So that's just going to happen. So the more you go over it, the better you're going to be at catching all those little details. And then you need the capacity to be able to respond to those. The other thing that's really difficult for me, thinking about just a work mentality, most of my day as a developer is spent in deep work. I don't have a lot of meetings. I don't have a lot of emails, or unless I get on Slack, if I can stay off, I'm not involved in a lot of conversation. So I can get a lot of deep, work done on projects. But this aspect has been like so many little things, right? So many like, connect with this person over Twitter DM, email this person back. Oh, I need to respond to this. Someone just Slacked me, like all these different things. And it's all these little conversations that you're trying to move just inches further, right? You can't ever, there's all these open loops and you can't close them all. They just keep coming back around, and you're just like moving the ball forward a little bit for each one of them. So you're changing context all the time. And that is really challenging. Like I find that to be really draining, exhausting. So I'm not getting as much deep work as I normally get, but it has to be done. It's a very different kind of work than I'm used to doing. So just know that's what you're getting into, I guess.
So what are you working on now? Like what's next?
Oh, current stuff. What are we looking at? One of the big things is sponsorships. Continuing to work on that. That opens the doors for many other things. Like I've got somebody who I want to do our video stuff, but we need the sponsors ahead of that. So there are things like that have to be done. Our CFP closes next Wednesday. We need to work in the next couple days to figure out how to include our volunteers in a way that makes sense, that gives them an opportunity to have feedback into our review process, and then plan that so that we can make our final choices and then go out, to our speakers and say, okay, are you still good? Will this work for you? And then, have all of that done and then start announcing. So we're planning to announce speakers starting March 15th. So we've got two weeks in there to, make our selections, speak, talk to the speakers, make sure they're on board, and then start announcing them. And that's also when our early bird registration closes March 15th. So there's quite a bit to do between now and then. And then I imagine that is also going to be another kind of big push in terms of our ability to start doing more marketing and stuff like that, because it's harder to have things to say until we know who our speakers are and what their topics are. But as soon as you have that, you have a lot more to say on social media or in email newsletters and that sort of thing. So we'll be able to we'll have more content available to start marketing that either to the people that are attending or people that might attend. So that'll be a big push then.
I guess the other thing that I've run into is sometimes with the remote conferences, I've actually had to postpone a couple of them because I set the timeline too short to launch them. Mm-hmm. So, and in the past, I just put it up and it would all kind of come together. But it seems like it's more work now to make it run. So I'm wondering on your end, like being where you are now, how far out would you schedule the conference? Like if you're looking at doing a conference and you're like, I want to run it as soon as possible, would you wait 6 months, 3 months, 8 months, 10 months?
I would say minimum 6 months.
Okay.
This is still my first time. Maybe it's easier than that. Like if you're a first timer, maybe if you've done this before and you have everything kind of set, but the first time you're like, oh, how am I going to do this? Oh, how am I going to do that? Oh, how are we going to do this? Like it's all these brand new challenges you got to solve for the first time, right? There's a bunch of stuff that if we did it again, especially if we use the same venue, it would fall into place, right? So, but if it's your first time, boy, you've got a bunch of decisions ahead of you. You probably need 6 months.
And I mean, really almost
you need to build awareness.
Yeah, really almost 8 months, because I guess we started talking. I mean, we started talking back in, when was that? October, November, something like that.
October, November, something like
January
that. January
is when we really, I think we got together and chatted, right after the first year, and you sort of decided, okay, yeah, we're going to definitely do it. I said, okay, yes, I'm definitely going to support you. So that was the 6 month mark, but really it was, we were sort of making some plans and having conversations about it prior to that.
That might be different if it was a 1 day event, or if you didn't have other aspects like that. Like but if it's 2 days, there's hotel, there's travel, people on site, lots of speakers. If you need sponsorship, all those things just add a lot of extra time. Yeah.
I'm also wondering, like, is there somebody you're getting advice from to start and run a conference, or?
Yeah. Oh, maybe I didn't say this already, but yes. Talk to other conference organizers. I have talked to a bunch of people. Talked to, Andy Kroll, Jason Charnes, Jem Isroff, Emily Samp. I just talked to Todd Lewis, who does all things open in Raleigh. Talked to him this week. Every time I talk to somebody new, I get something new out of it. So every person has this different perspective, and they remember different keys, or I bring up something that was different. And every time I've learned something valuable that I really needed to know. So I think that's huge. I've been so thankful to all the organizers who've been willing to give me like 30 minutes to an hour of their time. Like that's been so helpful. It's also, so there's the knowledge side of it. There's also the sort of the emotional support side of it, which is like, you're doing great. You're going to, we did it. You're going to be okay. That kind of just like the support around like, it's going to be all right. You're doing a brave thing. This is hard. You're going to get through it. That really helps. I personally need that. That's very reassuring, especially when, I get focused on one specific problem. Then I'm like, how are we going to figure this out? Like, this is so stressful. Knowing other people have figured it out and that they're supportive really matters. So I definitely recommend reaching out to people if you know them, especially, but I found even people that I didn't really know very well were willing to talk to me. And that's been, just such an encouraging thing.
So if people want to come to Blue Ridge Ruby conference, or if they want to volunteer or speak, or, Like, how do they connect with you guys?
Yeah, BlueRidgeRuby.com. That's our site. We've got a good amount of information, not speakers yet listed yet. That'll be 3 more weeks, but the venue, the town, kind of the basics about the conference, where to get a hotel, how travel, all that kind of stuff is there. We've got early bird ticket sales right now for $249. That's until March 15th. You can also there submit to our CFP. That's until next week, next Wednesday. I don't know when this episode will drop, but yeah, we're closing March 1st, and then we'll announce speakers March 15th. And if you're interested in sponsoring, there's a sponsorship page with all our packages. Definitely want to connect with you if you're interested in that. What else?
We also have
we also
scholarships.
have. Oh yeah. We have 10 first come first serve scholarship tickets that we're making available to people, educational or people based on need. We'd love to see more, especially early Rubyists coming to the conference. So there's a place to apply for that. And then we're also on Twitter and Ruby Social with the Blue Ridge Ruby handle.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and go into our next segment. One segment we added since you guys have been on is the self-promo segment. And it's just, hey, this is what I'm working on that people should know about. And we've kind of done that for the conference, but you guys are welcome to talk about anything else you guys are working on. I'm actually just going to jump in and go first.
Sure.
So 2 things that I've been working on, and I'll keep it real short. One of them is I'm getting ready to actually launch my MVP course, the Most Valuable Programmer course. And effectively, it's going to be a masterclass on how to get the most out of your career. And when I talk about get the most out of your career, effectively, when I talk to people who I think of at this level, they're getting paid really well to work on really interesting projects. They're in high demand and are recognized experts, right? And so that's what I'm going to teach you to do. I'm going to teach you how to get to that point, and sure, I mean, that you're going to have to do some work to get there, right? But I can show you a lot of the shortcuts. You don't have to go figure it out on your own. I'm probably going to sell it because I'm starting working on the course, but I'll probably do pre-sales, and based on whatever percentage I have done, you'll get it for that percentage of the full price, which is going to be it's going to be a high ticket course, right? Like a full-on boot camp. So keep an eye out for that. I'll probably tweet about it once I have the sign up page up. But that's one thing I'm working on. And the other thing I'm working on is I've actually put together a page for episode recommendations. So you can come in and you can recommend a person or a topic or, whatever, right? You can ask a question you want us to answer on the show. And then you can also come if you don't have an idea, but you want to see what people are suggesting. You can come and you can upvote them. And so, that's just something that we're. I've had a lot of people ask me for that, and so I'm putting that together. And then I'm also launching the Catapult Your Coding Career. So I said 2, and I gave you 3. And that's a podcast on the kinds of things I'm going to be teaching in that MVP course. But effectively, we're just going to answer questions that people have. So I'll start out with questions I've been getting in my coaching calls, right? And I'll just be a little bit hand wavy about who it is, right? Because I don't want to violate anyone's privacy. But a lot of the questions are questions that I get from a variety of people. And then I'll have a recommendation board for that as well. And you can come in and you can ask the question you want me to answer in the show. And then occasionally I think I'll have some guests on that can talk about publishing a book with a traditional publisher, or maybe I'll have you guys on to talk about organizing a conference or stuff like that. So that's what I'm working on. Either of you have things you're working on you want people to know?
Yeah, I've got something. So if you are into Rails and indie business, my friend Jess Brown and I just started the Indie Rails podcast. This is my first time dipping my toes into a podcast. We just interviewed Joe Mazzolotti of Rails Devs last week. It was really great talking with him. it feels like we've gotten a lot of great feedback from the community so far. So if you're into like independent business plus Rails, this is kind of like, that's our scene. That's what we're going for. So we're on all the major podcasting platforms as well as indierails.com.
I have a pet project that I started a couple months ago. Have not done a ton of work, but I'm excited about the idea. And if anyone would love to partner with me on that, I would be happy to have you work with me on it. The idea for it is I'm a registered independent, and I was thinking, like, how do I know whether a politician is independent or not, right? There's all these right-leaning sites and left-leaning sites. You can tell how conservative someone is and how liberal they are, but there's really no way to tell like if someone's independent or not. And so that was the sort of impetus for the idea. ProPublica has a congressional API, and you can pull all kinds of robust data from that. Every single bill that goes to the House and the Senate floor, all the discussion, how people voted on it, and then there's all kinds of neat little tidbits of data and things like that there. So the idea is, and I've toyed around with all kinds of names for a website. Are they independent? Are you independent? That's still so. If you work with me on this, you can help name the website. That's one
Nice.
perk. But I've sort of got the guts of a Rails app in place. I've started pulling data down. I've got sort of cron tasks that go in and pull data into it. Ideally, I would have a designer, somebody with a design sense. That's not one of my strong points. So certainly, if you're a front end person who knows some Rails, that would be great to work with. So you can, just reach out to me at Mark Locklear on Twitter.
That's cool. I'm fairly politically involved. I just don't talk about it on these shows because we're talking about programming.
Usually, yes, it's usually good not to. And I'm not, to me, this is pure tech, but yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting, just from the point of view of, how independent are they? Because I see the right-leaning, people who evaluate folks basically saying these people are way extreme over here, and I see the left-leaning folks do the same thing to people on the right, and usually they don't have anything to back it up, right? It's just like, and so it'd be interesting to, here's the voting record, here's the algorithm we're using, right? And so then I can look at it and I go, oh, I see what you're pulling in. I can see how you'd come to that conclusion. That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and do picks. Now, I always do a board game pick first. So I'm going to pick a board game. This one is a little bit more complicated. I feel like the last handful that I've done have been, fairly casual games that most people would play. This one's a pretty intense game. It's called Arc Nova. And effectively what you wind up doing is you're buying animals and stuff in your zoo. And I think I played it last night with my friends, and it took us like 3 hours to play it. So it's not for the faint of heart, but it was super fun. It's just kind of involved, and it takes a while to play it. So what you wind up doing is you wind up you kind of manage your turn and take different actions, and you put animals in the zoo. The animals have effects. There are 3 tracks. There's the prestige, or the reputation track. There's the conservation track, and there's the appeal track. And so, as you put the animals in the zoo, almost all of them give you appeal. Some of them give you money that you use to, buy space in your zoo, build space in your zoo for more animals. And anyway, I'm not going to go into play, but it's pretty fun. This is the second time through that I've played it. The third time that I've started it, and I really enjoyed it. So it is a 3.72 weight out of 5 on Board Game Geek, and as I'm telling people, 2 is kind of where you get into the semi-complicated game that a casual gamer would still play. And so when you get into games like this, it's the serious board gamers that want to have like a thinking strategy, intense game. I also have to say that it's so tempting for me to just write like a mobile app or something that keeps track of like all the tracks and everything else, so that effectively, I can play on my phone and I can say, okay, up the, I played this card, and it would add, subtract, and tell me what else I need to do in order to make sure that I know what's going on. And, I can also tell it what I've done on my board, so that at the end of the, because there were a few times where we played something and then somebody would go, oh, I missed this and this. And, we'd always let them go back and do it. But yeah, it's just because there were some complicated pieces to it. So I'm going to pick that. Another pick that I have is I'm still doing 75 hard. About weeks ago, I had some terrible stuff happen to friends of mine. And so, it just wiped me out. So I had to start it over. But I'm 2 weeks in now. And last week, doing the workouts and everything, I actually lost 4 pounds, and my body fat percentage went down by a percentage point. So I'm pretty thrilled about that. So go check out 75 Hard. It's actually a self-discipline program. It's not a weight loss program, but it's one of the side effects because you have to work out as part of your deal. So I'm going to pick that. It has an app. The app's a lifesaver because I would forget stuff the first time I did it before there was the app. And I completed it, but I had to remember everything every day. And this time it makes it real simple to just do. So I'm enjoying that. And there was a new episode of 1923, and I'm enjoying that as well. And then there was something else I was going to pick, and I listened to a couple of books on Audible. And so let me just shout out about those real quick. The first one's called Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo. And it's awesome. And it really made me think about just how many times I just give myself an excuse in the past to not finish something or do something instead of pushing through and finding a way to make it happen. The other one is The Power of One More, and that one's by Ed Milet. And his is more of the do one more lap, do one more push-up, do one more, stick it out for one more day when things are hard. And, there are the different chapters go into like, one more style leadership, one more style, exercise, one more style. And so he gives you examples of how it plays out in your life. And it really, really inspired me. And so I'm enjoying that as well. And I picked up the book because he was talking about some of these ideas on a call. And this is my last pick. I've picked like 6 things. I'm sorry. But this last one is so he and Andrew Frisella, who did the MF CEO Project podcast and now is the Real AF podcast, they're relaunching MF CEO. But anyway, he has a podcast. Andy Frisella is also the guy who put together 75 Hard. The two guys together have put together a community called Arate Syndicate. And what it is it's a bunch of business people that get together. Usually it's just Ed and Andy like answering questions and talking about some of these ideas. And so I picked up the book because, he was talking about some of the ideas and just casually mentioned that he had some of it in that book. So I listened to the book and it's awesome. I actually plan on buying both of those books physically and notes in them. So anyway, they're terrific. I'll put links to all of it in the show notes, but yeah, loving that. Mark, do you have some picks for us?
I do have some picks. I have 2 picks. One is going to be, and I think I bought this headset based on a pick off this show many, many years ago, but I thought I would just come back around to it full circle. These are Logitech H820E headset, and what's cool about it is they're not Bluetooth. It's like the old school 802.11. Wireless connection. So what's great about it is something like this, you're not going to walk away. But often if I'm in staff meetings or something like that, and I'm not playing a huge role and I just need to be there and listen, I can mute myself and I can walk all around the house. I can walk downstairs and go put clothes from the wash into the dryer. I can even walk out to the road and go to the mailbox. So I don't know. I haven't really seen how far I can go before I lose a connection. But if you're a child of the 80s and you had a wireless phone back then, it probably used that 802.11 wireless standard. So that's one pick. And then the other pick is, and surely someone has made this pick in the last couple months, but I'm going to say Chat GPT. Yesterday I had the experience of, I was having an issue with, I had a Vagrant box that had MySQL loaded on it, and I've got PHP My Admin on my local box, and I was trying to connect to this MySQL instance on this Vagrant box from PHP, from PHP MySQL, and I simultaneously posted on Stack Overflow about the issue that I was having, and then I went into a conversation with Chat GPT, and we went back and forth about 10 times or so. But I Chat GPT helped me successfully solve my issue, and by then that was probably, by the time I went back and looked on Stack Overflow, there was still not a response there. And so I feel like that. For me, that feels like a milestone moment. And so I would encourage folks. Surely you've heard about it, but if you're not using Chat GPT, or at least experiment with it, try it and see. But it's pretty impressive.
Awesome. Yeah, I've played with it some. Definitely want to play with it more because I've been doing quite a bit of writing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I would use exactly what ChatGPT wrote, but I've done a couple of things with it, and it gives me a solid start. Yeah.
Yep.
And then I can go from there, and I can say, okay, this is more how I want my voice to come across, or how I would say it out loud. And then typically I'm adding in, and this is the story I would tell, right? That ChatGPT can't pull out of my head.
And what's also fun, I was going to say, what's also fun, Chuck, when you do that, do it, and then go back and add, and do it in the voice of a pirate. And so that sort of closes the loop on it.
There we go. Pirate emails. Yeah. How about you, Jeremy? What are your picks?
I got 2 picks. The first is a blog post by Clive Thompson. It's called How I Use RSS to Rewild My Attention. And I really love this idea of rewilding your attention instead of having it sort of tied down to a feed, using RSS that way. It's kind of a throwback in some ways, but in other ways, it's like a way to kind of get yourself weaned off maybe a little bit of social media and algorithmic feeds. And so I'll share the link for that. And then I also came across this site. It's a site with articles and a book that goes with it. It's called Good Services. The site is good.services. And, I do consulting and development for people, and I'm thinking about services a lot and what kind of services I offer and how to package those well. And this site has, in the book, I'm excited to get this book and read it, but already reading some of the articles has a really good insight into how to think about the service that you're offering, not just simply the tasks that you're doing, but how it's presented to your clients, to the people that would buy it, and how to properly design an entire service. And thinking about it being a design challenge is kind of interesting. You have a lot of choices that you can make. You can kind of pick some defaults, but there are a lot of choices to make to either, make for better or for worse for your clients, that experience for them. So good services looks really interesting. I'm already learning some good stuff from that. Excited to pick up the book.
Nice. All right. So last question, if people want to connect with you online, where do they find you?
For me, go ahead. It's Jeremy Smith Co. on Twitter and on Ruby Social. And my little one-person dev studio is called Hybrid, hybrd.co.
And I am...
And you, Mark?
I'm Mark Locklear, Marklocklear, on most platforms, including Twitter, and my website is locklear.me.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for coming. This was awesome.
Thank you, Chuck.
Great. Thank you, Chuck. Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right. Well, folks, hang in there. Until next time, max out.